This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. Yes, that's right, still on break. But you're going to be thrilled about that this week because we have clips from some incredibly important topics, regardless of your age.
Absolutely. So what topic will we be learning about today?
The best of energy and engineering.
Ooh, the best of energy and engineering. This sounds so cool. Now you are going to get to hear from episode 148, How Do You Get Energy from the Wind? With Neil Milani. Episode 173, How Does Drinking Water Get to Your House? With Trip Barton. A very important thing to know.
Love
Yes.
that one.
And finally, episode 143, How Do You Get Materials from the Earth? With Alexis Lewis. You are going to have tons of fun learning all of these cool things, so enjoy!
How do you get energy from the wind?
How can you get energy from the wind? Ooh, great question. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
And we have just the right guy to tell us about that. Today, our guest is Neil Milani. He is an application engineer for Bachmann Electronic.
Welcome to the show, Neil.
Thank you. Nice to be with you guys.
Well, we are excited to have you because we're going to talk about wind engineering and the power of wind, which I think is really cool because I don't think a lot of people know a lot about this. I might not. But I'd like to start with my first question. Have you always wanted to be an engineer and study wind and power?
Well, let's see. No, I haven't always wanted to be an engineer.
No.
I was always interested in science. Always trying to figure out how things worked, taking watches apart, taking things apart, managing to put them back together again eventually. So I wasn't a really good student in high school, but went into college and hunted around for majors. And eventually I settled on engineering and physics.
Wow.
And then, like most engineers, you kind of start off in one area and then you get a perspective of all these other things that are surrounding you that you didn't know about. So I went from that to automotive, to telecom, eventually into wind. So wind was when I got to the point where I really wanted to do something that had a bit more meaning. Anybody can make this or make that. And I wanted to be working on renewable energy. So I went back to school, got my master's in mechanical engineering, and worked when I was at school, solar. We're putting on residential solar and small scale wind, and then got hired on to work on wind turbines. So it was a long route, but eventually ended up in wind, and that's kind of been my passion ever since.
That's awesome.
Okay. So I love how you just boiled down sort of a long story into the sound bites. That was great. You ended up on wind and that became your passion. Was there a specific professor that you worked with or a project that you worked on somewhere along the way that exposed you to wind engineering and wind technology?
I went to North Carolina State University to get my master's. And there isn't a wind turbine engineering degree or anything like that.
Okay.
There really isn't any renewables degree. You just major in a particular area and you can apply it to renewables, let's say.
Right.
Okay.
And at the NC State, they had what was called the Solar House at the time. That was part of the extension office providing assistance to anybody in the state. And if you had a question about wind or solar, you could contact us and we would help you. And we got to
okay.
install small scale wind and solar, and we would put up anemometers, those little poles that read the
Sure.
wind energy for a
Yeah.
while, put them on people's farms. And then after a year, we could tell them if a wind turbine was a good idea or not.
Oh, I
Oh,
like that.
Never knew that happened.
Yeah.
So we did work at Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, where the Wright brothers were. We put a
Right.
solar installation there, and just south of there, we put a really small wind turbine. And since it's on the coast, we had it so that you could put it up and down when a hurricane came.
Very
Okay.
smart.
We wanted to put it up more. We just wanted to put it up once, not 3 or 4 times. So whenever a hurricane would come in, they would kind of crank it down, and the hurricane would pass, and they put it back up again.
Now, see, that's really clever, of course, since everybody knows that listens to this that I live in Florida. So that's important. But North Carolina, you guys get hit up there a lot too. So
Yes. So
Yeah.
I believe it's still running. That's how I got started doing that kind of stuff as a research assistant at North Carolina State.
I think that's really fun. Okay, so can you tell us about wind turbines and wind energy? How does it work?
Okay, so when you drive by a wind turbine, if you've ever seen one, there's a giant tower. And
Right?
on top of the tower is what's called a nacelle. It's a box, and that's got transmission and all kind of other equipment up there. And in front of that box is a rotor, propeller that catches the wind.
Okay.
So the wind
Okay.
turbine has to orient itself in whatever direction the wind's coming from. So it kind of swivels around and points to the wind.
Oh.
When the wind gets to a certain speed, it says, okay, I can produce power, and starts generating electricity and controls its speed and doesn't go too fast or doesn't go too slow. So they
Okay.
can produce energy along with all the other wind turbines, let's say, at that farm, and operates as just kind of as needed. So it's autonomously hunting for the wind all day and all night long, 365, and
Oh.
will produce power whenever it can. So there's situations where there's no wind and it just sits
Right.
there. There's situations when there's just enough wind, but like in Texas, for example, sometimes there's too much. They have enough wind turbines running
Oh.
that they will curtail them. They'll shut them down. So you'll drive by a wind farm and you'll see a bunch of turbines stopped. And you'll ask
Yeah.
what's going on. And they said, oh, well, we don't need all that energy right now. We've got too much. So we'll park them for now. So
Okay.
they're trying to figure out here's this extra energy going
Right.
during the farm. We can't use it right now, but maybe we can figure out some other way to use it. Battery
Okay.
storage, for example. They're
Yeah.
thinking of battery storage.
Right. That's what I would think, some type of storage, but I know that's not as easy as it sounds necessarily.
It's slowly becoming a viable option. They're making the batteries bigger and they're putting them in for exactly that situation. They were even talking about crypto mining. Here's an industry that requires a lot of energy. Well, here's all those wind turbines generating energy. They're not doing anything. How about we mine crypto with it? So there's a ton of little ideas behind the scenes.
Wow.
What do you do with a wind turbine's energy when you can't use it?
That's a
Okay.
great question.
It sure is.
Yeah. So if you see crypto mining with a little wind turbine next to it, that might be the next idea that we come up with.
Okay,
Oh.
very cool. We're already jumping into the future. One of the things you just said actually answered one of my questions already, which was, but it kind of leads me to a different one in that the wind turbines don't always face in the same direction. They're
Right.
seeking the wind. My question now is, does it turn automatically or is it using, like, does the wind turn it in the direction of where it's coming from, or does the power of the turbine actually turn it to where it needs to go?
So the wind turbine has on it a device for measuring the wind speed and the wind direction.
Okay.
And the older wind turbines had one of these little vanes that would wag back and forth. Anything that's in
Sure.
the wind just kind of wags. Now, think of yourself as a blind fighter and someone's punching you all the time on the left-hand side. So a wind turbine is blind. It has no idea where the wind's really coming
Right.
from.
Right.
Okay.
It just knows that this vane up there is wagging left and right. If it wags a lot to the left side, if you're getting punched on your left cheek, then you know the person's to the left and you turn to the left. And if it's wagging more on the right side, you're getting punched on the right, you turn to the right. So
That
a
makes
blind
sense.
prize fighter is the analogy I come up with for vane. And it depends on how many times it wags left or wags right as to how it needs to turn left or right.
I love that analogy. That makes so much sense.
How does drinking water get to your house?
How does drinking water get to your house? This is, pretty important. And this is going to be an engineering episode. Yay, I am so excited. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today is the one and only Charles Trip Barton. He is a civil engineer with a large American water company.
Welcome to the show, Trip.
Hey, good morning, guys. Great to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you, and we're going to talk all about water and how it gets to your house. Kind of important topic, don't you think?
I agree wholeheartedly.
So I like to start out the show with, when you were a kid, were you always fascinated by water and how it moved?
So it's a pretty boring story. I'm the third civil engineer in a row in our family. I wanted to strike out and do radio and TV, but I got pulled back into the engineering. My grandpa was a civil engineer for the Army. My dad was a civil engineer for the Illinois Department of Transportation. And then in a private practice at a consulting firm. So it was good. But no, I wanted to do something sciencey. Oceanography was on the radar for a while, but then civil engineering is pretty broad. It can cover anything.
It is
pretty much anywhere. So it's a nice general thing to do. So
and there aren't too many oceans in Illinois where you live. So
oddly enough, University of Illinois has an oceanography program, but they do, but I don't know what they do. So
So I have always kind of wondered, civil engineering, I think, is one of those areas of engineering where a lot of folks in the general public don't know as much about how many different avenues you can go down. What are some of the avenues, and how did you end up targeting water?
So it's a long story, but civil engineering is basically the engineering that all the other disciplines do not want to do. And generally, it's outside. So it's roads, bridges, the structural part of buildings is civil engineering. Railroads, anything outside, parks, developments, but a lot of utility stuff. So on the water and then wastewater side, so clean water coming to your house, and then water going away from your house, that's civil engineering as well. We help out on the electrical and gas grids as well for layout and networks and things like that. So I started out kind of doing the transportation thing for a while. I used to do traffic signals. And then we had a couple projects that came through that were more environmental engineering. So it's more water and wastewater, that kind of thing. And that's kind of how I got in. So after I got into the workforce, that's when I kind of switched over to water. I got interested in geographic information systems. So like smart mapping, think like Google Maps for utilities, sort of. And then that's kind of where I really got into it. And then that's kind of where it progressed from there. So it's been pretty interesting. There's a lot of different avenues to get into with civil engineering. So I highly recommend it to anybody that's interested.
I mean, that sounds fun. Okay, so now I'm curious. Google Maps, you said, for kind of... So what did you say for that? Like how you use
Google Maps for utilities.
Utilities.
It could be anything. Yeah. So basically it's smart mapping. It's like for utilities, it's more like I have a water main leak here.
Okay.
What valves do I need to shut to isolate that leak? Who do I need to call? So it's basically all integrated now. So we can shut the valves on the map and then know, okay, we're going to affect these 15 customers.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's all pretty much interconnected, which is pretty cool. So it's water systems have been around probably since forever, but this
which is a good thing, right? Which is a good thing.
But there's new stuff that comes, new technologies that can be applied to old technology. So that's one of the things that kind of excited me on the GIS end of things. So it's trace routing for sanitary sewers. And I'm just talking very small, on the transportation side of thing. The guts behind Google Maps, it's center line driven, location based. The same thing is used for like transportation centers and monitoring, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of applications. So I used to work for a civil engineering firm, and we do view shed analysis. So if we want to put in, especially if it was like a business that wants to say, who could see me? You can say, I'm at this elevation. And they would say, okay, from all around here, who can we see? We use it now for water towers. And if somebody wants to put a radio antenna on a water tower, we can see, line of sight to see what kind of coverage that would have. So
that's cool.
There's a lot of different things that we can do with that. And it's right now, the new thing for GIS is going inside the buildings and actually having mapping inside the building. So that's kind of like the the new thing. So
You mean like knowing where the plumbing is and everything?
Yeah, so they have building information systems, and then those are kind of morphing where you probably see Google Maps occasionally. If you'll see like the inside of a mall, and if you can have a tracking, you can actually see where you're at inside. So it's that more of on a like a company application rather than a public use thing like Google. But it's pretty smart. You have smart buildings, and you can know where you're at within the building. They use it for. We'll do LiDAR, there is light in
right
ranging. We'll like do 3D modeling of the inside of the building. So you have a model, and then you could do scenarios for like fire and police if they want to do a simulated response. Like where would we go?
Oh, wow.
And for us, it's nice because you measure it once and then you don't have to go out and measure it again. Okay, this is a 3-foot door and there's 18 feet between this tank.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So yeah.
Wow. You hear about technology and how it's improving things,
Right.
but until you get some details inside folks' jobs like yours, you don't really think about it.
Right.
And like what you were saying with Google Maps inside of buildings, I went to this San Diego Air and Space Museum. Turns out when you zoom in far enough on Google Maps, you can see the inside of the museum and drawings of all the planes and everything and where they are.
Wow.
Never even occurred to me to think of it in terms of the building's infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just sounds fascinating. So how much is that being integrated into the systems, the water systems? Do you use it like occasionally, or is that pretty much what you guys are doing all the time now, is just continually adding the technology?
We're continually adding technology, and on utilities, like the kind of dividing line is the property line. So we are out in the public.
Okay.
Most of our stuff is out there. And then this would be something that our customer would do, a private customer, and behind their property line to do so. But we're using it on our facilities, like our water treatment plants, our pump stations, that kind of stuff. So things that we have inside that would be applied to soon.
Wow.
And then
super cool.
Yeah.
It is really cool. But yeah, even like during design, they use these building information systems where it's basically 3D CAD of the whole building. You can actually rotate it, see what's going on, isolate different, I want to see all the plumbing systems. I want to see.
That is so cool.
Oh my goodness.
And then that's kind
it's
of
not just in the movies anymore.
It's really a thing. That's been around for probably 15 years, the building information modeling, and it's pretty ubiquitous. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so amazing because, those of us who, this is not the job that we do, so we aren't aware that there's this much technology that you can use. But I want to get to our question. So, because I think this is really cool. How does drinking water get to your house? So
yes.
This is a really important thing for all of us to understand. So can you go through the steps for us?
It depends on where you're at.
Okay.
Generally, water comes from two sources. Either comes from groundwater, like in a well, it's pumped, and then it's treated and distributed, or it comes from surface water. So it could be a lake, a river, the ocean, sometimes if you can have a desalination plant. But generally, it's surface water or groundwater. So most often, groundwater is very predictable. It's consistent. It's the same temperature generally when it gets pumped up.
Gotcha.
The ground kind of acts as a giant filter before it gets to the well. So it's
Right.
clean by the time you get it.
Oh.
Surface water is very plentiful and it's already pumped up, so it's easier to get at. But it's highly variable as far as like the water quality and the temperature.
How do you get materials from the earth?
How do we get materials from the earth? This is going to be so fun. And I'm thinking we're going to talk about digging. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
We are going to be talking about digging today, Jennifer. Our guest today is the fantastic Alexis Lua. She is an industrial engineer who's worked in multiple industries, but we are going to focus today on mining.
Welcome to the show, Alexis.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about talking about mining.
I am excited too, and not just because I have a book about rocks, and but I want to talk more about, why we mine and how we get all these amazing building materials. So this is going to be really interesting. But I like to start with my first question. Did you always know as a kid that you wanted to be in mining? Like, were you one of those kids that collected rocks and all those kinds of things?
Well, I wasn't actually specifically focusing on mining per se, but
Okay.
I did collect a lot of rocks. I love to play outside. And I was always intrigued about travel. And as you already know, there's mining exists everywhere in the world, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you can go anywhere with this job.
Correct. And that's what actually sparked my interest right out of university, whenever I was offered to go and explore the world and dig some dirt out.
I like that.
Okay, so just before we jump into exploring the world, what did you study when you were in college that led to that invitation?
So I did study industrials and systems engineering, which does give you a basis for mechanical engineering as well as geology. So I had some background information and really basic information about what mining would be. So, and math always gives us our door to anything that we want to do. And that's why I chose engineering in general.
That's so fun. And we love engineering. I think I have a systems engineer type of brain. But I'm curious, how did you get into mining? And can you tell us a little bit what it's like? Because I'm assuming you had to go down deep into the earth and the shafts and work with these big tractors and all this kind of stuff. What was that like?
Sure. And I'll tell you what my perspective was about mining beforehand, right? So I graduated and I was offered this really, really cool job in France specifically to go out and then learn the technology and see how do we extract all of this material out of the earth. Now, whenever I heard mining, to be honest, what came into mind, it's boring. It might be old. It might be dirty. It definitely didn't involve a lot of travel. Right. But I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it was completely the opposite.
In what way? Can you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I discovered is that mining is everywhere around the world, regardless of the language that we speak. So as long as we have the engineering background and also the mathematics background, you can definitely extract dirt pretty much anywhere in the world. So that know-how actually brought me to travel everywhere, and which I discovered the love for that, for traveling and also discovering new minerals and new materials around the world.
That's cool.
That is cool. So tell us, what is it like to mine? Like what are you looking for in all of these different building materials? What are you digging up?
Okay, so why don't I explain the process of mining?
Okay.
And how do we do it? It's very, very simple. If we just summarize it into 5 different steps, I would say step number 1, it's definitely located. So the material can exist in a mountain. It can also exist in the ocean and even the desert. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's surprising, I think.
Very.
I mean, you don't think of that as a mining place, especially because it's hot. But I mean, clearly there's rocks under everywhere in the Earth's crust. So yes.
Absolutely. So whenever I talk about a desert, I'm not talking about the hot desert that we all know. I'm actually talking about a salt desert. And that's where we mine lithium for all of our batteries and our electronics.
Oh, that's very important.
Isn't that cool? Actually, mining lithium brought me out to Chile, one of those really, really remote places in the middle of the earth, where the only thing that exists there, it's actually salt. It never rains. It has 4 inches of rain per year.
Oh my God.
Which creates it as one of the most driest place on earth.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's how lithium is formed, because of all of those crystallized particles. They become so dry, then it becomes lithium. And then we mine it and process it, et cetera, et cetera. So step number 1, locate it, right? So we look at a mountain, we can look at an ocean or a desert. Now, step number 2, that will be digging out and exploding things, right?
Ooh, this sounds like a good part. We like this part.
You just got everybody's attention.
Awesome. So digging and exploding, what does that involve? Well, since sometimes the minerals exist really, really deep into the earth, what we need to do is to get it out. How do we get it out? We need to pretty much like inject some really cool explosives very safely, of course.
Of course.
Of course. Don't do this at home.
Don't do this at home. Yes. And they're really, really big. There's actually engineers that do that for you. Specifically, they train for that, just to how to explode a really, really big hole, right? So that would be the type of exploding or the type of digging that will create a really big pit, where it will make us to finally reach the material that exists, a couple of meters or feet below the earth.
Okay.
That's one of the options. Another option would be to actually explore above the ground. So we don't have to dig, but we can also start excavating. That's the second option.
Okay. So like on a mountain, is that what you're talking about?
Correct. You got it, Jen. Like on a mountain.
So you're talking about digging into the mountain. Excavating. Do you sometimes explode in the mountain too? Or is
you do to create some tunneling? Yes.
Right.
Definitely do, to make your pathway into the heart of the mountain, which a lot of times, and the event of limestone, for example, that exists in the best and the most purest limestone actually exists more deeper into the mountain than into the surface.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
So, and then the third option would be, so it doesn't require any explosive. It just exists. But it's also very cool though, because it just exists in the surface. And then, for example, oleolytic aragonite sand. This exists in the ocean, specifically really close to the Bahamas, and it's just there. We don't have to do anything. We just have to gather it and process it.
What does that do?
Actually, the aragonite sand, it's a great, great additive for food, medical, even glass. Can you believe that?
Wow. No.
So I know sand and glass.
Yeah.
How are sand and food additives? Because I got to say, if I go to the beach and I drop something, I am less happy about the rest of my lunch.
Well, it's not the sand that will exist at the beach. Actually, this is a really, really special sand where we can extract calcium carbonate. Now, calcium carbonate is what you eat, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. That
I want
makes
to
sense.
learn where this stuff comes from.
It's in a really special and beautiful place in the Bahamas.
Oh, let's go there. That sounds good.
So just grab some aragonite sand. Yes. So that's the step number 2.
Energy and engineering, 2 topics that touch every single one of our lives, every single day, and most of the time, we're not thinking about it.
Yep.
These full episodes are gonna make you think about it.
Absolutely. And go to our website, solveitforkids.com, where you'll find the whole episode so that you can listen to all of them and learn every little cool thing about, I love this, getting drinking water to your home, which is very important, by the way. So make sure that you listen to them and then maybe discuss them with your family, right? And we hope you have lots of fun enjoying your holidays.
My daughter Zoe is still on her holiday break, so guess who's going to be tracking where our drinking water comes from?
There you go.
Until next time, you'll hear Jen and Jeff on Solve It for Kids.